Self-belief is the foundation of success because it is the one force that stays with you when everything else seems to fade, when the applause goes quiet, when people stop noticing your efforts, and when the world questions your path. And in those moments, it becomes the anchor that keeps you steady and the fire that pushes you forward, because no matter how much talent, skill, or opportunity you may have, without confidence in yourself, it is all wasted, since belief is what transforms potential into progress, what allows you to take the first step, even when the ground beneath you looks uncertain, and what helps you rise after every fall. And it is not about arrogance or pretending you are perfect, but about the quiet yet unshakable conviction that you are capable of learning, adapting, and growing through every challenge. For success is rarely a straight line, and often the path is filled with detours, rejections, and delays. Yet those who carry unwavering faith in themselves walk that uneven road with endurance, knowing that setbacks are not the end but part of the shaping process. And self-belief is what keeps you from quitting when things move slower than expected, what makes you invest the extra hours, what allows you to sacrifice comfort for vision, because without it, the smallest obstacle can feel like the biggest wall, but with it, even mountains begin to look like steps. And it is this inner confidence that gives courage to try again and again, while others give up after one attempt, that makes you willing to stand alone for your values and your dream even if no one else claps for you. And when people doubt your abilities, underestimate your potential, or tell you that your goals are unrealistic, it is self-belief that whispers louder, telling you to prove them wrong, not by shouting back, but by working in silence until your results echo the truth. And this belief is not always natural. Sometimes it must be built piece by piece through small victories, through learning to trust yourself when you make promises and keep them, through facing fear head-on and realizing that it loses its power once you act, and through reminding yourself that history was not made by those who waited for validation, but by those who trusted themselves before anyone else dared to. Because every breakthrough begins with a person who chose to believe when others could not see the vision, and in moments of loneliness or rejection, that self-belief becomes the invisible companion walking beside you, strengthening you when your own energy feels drained, reminding you why you started, and pulling you forward to the place where eventually others will see what you saw all along. And success becomes not just the result of skill or luck, but the reward of refusing to abandon yourself. For when you hold faith in your own strength, you are never truly alone, and you carry within you an unstoppable force that no doubt, no rejection, and no delay can destroy. Because the moment you decide to believe in yourself without conditions, you already carry the seed of success, and all that remains is nurturing it with action, persistence, and resilience until it grows into reality. Silencing doubt and external voices is one of the greatest skills you can develop on the journey to achieving anything meaningful, because the world will always have opinions, criticisms, and projections of fear that are not your own. And if you allow every word, every doubtful glance, every dismissive comment to penetrate your mind, it can paralyze your progress before it even begins. But when you learn to filter negativity, to separate what is constructive from what is destructive, you begin to protect the purity of your vision and strengthen your focus on the conviction that matters most, which is your own belief in what you are capable of doing. Because the truth is that people will often doubt you not because of your weakness, but because of their own limitations, their own fears, and their own inability to imagine what they have never done themselves. So if you let their words define your choices, you end up living inside the cage of their fears instead of the freedom of your own possibilities. And this is why mastering the art of inner silence is so powerful. Because when you shut out the noise of negativity, you begin to hear the quiet but persistent voice of your own potential urging you forward, reminding you that doubt is nothing more than a passing shadow, and shadows only exist when light is present, which means even doubt itself is proof that there is greatness in you worth pursuing. And the process of silencing external voices does not mean you close your ears to all feedback, but it means you discern, you choose carefully which voices deserve space in your mind, recognizing that true guidance pushes you upward while empty criticism tries to hold you down. And when you realize that not everyone will understand your journey, you stop expecting validation from those who have never walked your path. Instead, you focus on your own inner compass, because the conviction you carry inside is the most reliable map. And the more you strengthen it, the more resilient you become to the noise outside. For every innovator, leader, dreamer, or achiever faced a chorus of voices telling them they were unrealistic, foolish, or destined to fail. Yet the difference between those who stopped and those who succeeded was the ability to close the door on those distractions and move forward anyway. And this discipline of filtering doubt is built in moments when fear tempts you to question your worth, when setbacks whisper that you should quit, when others laugh or dismiss your efforts. And in those moments, you either surrender to the noise or you rise above it by reminding yourself why you began, by holding on to the vision only you can see, and by proving through persistent action that no amount of external disbelief can define your destiny. And the irony is that the very people who doubted you will one day use your success as proof of what is possible. Yet if you had listened to them, that success would have never been realized, which is why the true battle is never outside but within. A daily practice of keeping your mind clear, your focus sharp, and your conviction untouchable. Because once you silence the doubt and shut out the external noise, you become unstoppable, moving forward with clarity, courage, and strength that no criticism can weaken. Resilience through rejection is the defining quality that separates those who only dream from those who eventually achieve, because rejection is an unavoidable part of pursuing anything that matters. And while it may sting, discourage, or make you question your worth in the moment, it is also the very force that can sharpen your focus, strengthen your spirit, and fuel your drive to keep moving forward. For every no is not the end of your journey but a redirection, a test of how badly you want what you say you want. And those who learn to embrace rejection rather than fear it begin to see that every dismissal is an opportunity to grow, to refine, and to prepare for the moment when the door finally opens. Because success has never been about avoiding failure or escaping rejection, but about rising stronger after each one. And when you understand that rejection is not personal, but a natural part of the process, you stop seeing it as proof of inadequacy and start seeing it as evidence that you are on the path. For no one who ever accomplished something meaningful did so without facing countless rejections along the way. And history is filled with examples of writers, leaders, inventors, athletes, and visionaries who were told they were not good enough, that their ideas would not work, or that they would never succeed. Yet what they all shared in common was the ability to turn rejection into motivation, using each setback as a reason to push harder rather than an excuse to give up. And this mindset transforms rejection from something that breaks you into something that builds you. Because every no you encounter toughens your resolve, teaches you patience, and builds the resilience needed to handle the weight of eventual success. And while most people see rejection as a door slammed shut, those with resilience know that it is simply a delay, a challenge to prove their commitment, a chance to go back, work harder, come back stronger, and try again until the no turns into a yes. Because resilience is not about being unaffected by rejection, but about refusing to let it stop you, about taking the sting and turning it into strength, about reminding yourself that the pain of being rejected today will one day pale in comparison to the joy of achieving what you once thought was impossible. And when you develop this resilience, rejection becomes less of a roadblock and more of a stepping stone, a necessary part of the journey that shapes you into the person capable of holding the success you are pursuing. For if success came without rejection, you would never develop depth of character, the grit, or the persistence required to sustain it. So the next time you hear no, instead of shrinking back, you can stand taller, knowing that each rejection brings you closer to the breakthrough you seek, and that resilience through rejection is not just a strategy, but a way of life, a decision to keep pushing no matter how many doors close, because the only true rejection that can ever defeat you is the one you give yourself when you stop trying. Vision only you can see is one of the most powerful truths you must hold on to when walking the path of your dreams, because the reality is that the dream placed in your heart was not shown to everyone else. It was entrusted to you alone, and that means you will often find yourself misunderstood, doubted, or even ridiculed by people who cannot comprehend what you see so clearly in your imagination, for they do not carry the same fire, the same urgency, or the same clarity that drives you forward. And while it can be lonely to walk a road that others dismiss, it is in that solitude that greatness is born, because every vision begins in the mind of a single person who dares to believe in what others cannot yet grasp. And if you wait for universal approval before moving, you will wait forever, since most people measure possibilities by what already exists, while visionaries see possibilities by what could exist. And that difference in perception is why your dream might seem unrealistic, foolish, or impossible to others, yet it remains alive within you because it was never meant for them to carry. It was meant for you to protect, nurture, and manifest. And the greatest challenge is learning to trust that inner picture, even when external evidence does not yet align with it, because vision always comes before reality. It is the seed planted in the unseen long before it blossoms into something tangible, and history is filled with examples of individuals who were laughed at, dismissed, or told they were aiming too high, yet they persevered, holding on to their unique vision until the world could finally see what they saw all along. And what gave them the strength to continue was the unwavering belief that if the dream was placed in their heart, it was for reason, and no amount of doubt from others could erase that truth. And this is where courage becomes essential. The courage to stand firm in your dream, even when you stand alone. The courage to keep building brick by brick, even when no one applauds. The courage to protect your vision from being diluted by the opinions of those who lack the capacity to see it. Because if everyone understood your vision from the start, it would not be unique, it would not be revolutionary, it would not be yours, and learning to carry a vision others cannot see requires patience, because the journey from dream to reality often takes longer than you expect, and during that gap you will face skepticism and even your own moments of doubt. Yet if you remind yourself that this vision is a gift given specifically to you, you will realize that the responsibility is not to gain approval, but to take action. To keep moving even in the dark, to trust that every step you take is moving you closer to what only you can see, and in time, as your work begins to bear fruit, the same people who once doubted you will point to your success as proof of what is possible. But until that day arrives, you must hold steadfastly to the unseen, knowing that vision precedes evidence, and that carrying a dream no one else understands is not a burden but an honor, because it means you are walking a path meant to change something, to create something, to inspire something beyond the ordinary, and for that reason, you must never abandon the vision that was given to you alone, for it is the light that will guide you through every obstacle until it becomes reality. Growth through solitude is one of the most transformative experiences a person can embrace, because when you learn to stand alone, you are no longer dependent on the noise, approval, or presence of others to define your strength, your direction, or your worth. And in those quiet moments of separation, you begin to uncover the depth of who you truly are. For solitude is not about loneliness, but about connection. A deeper connection to your own thoughts, emotions, and purpose. And while the world often convinces us that being surrounded by others is the measure of success, the truth is that some of the greatest growth you will ever experience comes in moments when you are forced to rely only on yourself, when no one else is clapping for you, guiding you, or validating you. And it is in those spaces of stillness that clarity begins to emerge, because away from distractions you can hear your own voice more clearly. You can sort out what is truly yours from what has been imposed on you, and you can align your actions with your values in a way that is not swayed by temporary influences. And standing alone builds an inner strength that cannot be shaken easily, because once you realize that you can endure solitude, rejection, or even misunderstanding and still continue forward, you become unbreakable, and independence grows naturally out of that strength. For when you trust yourself to make decisions, to take risks, and to walk paths others may avoid, you free yourself from the chains of dependency on others' opinions, and this independence does not mean isolation, but rather a form of self-mastery where you can stand with others out of choice, not out of need, and in solitude you learn resilience, patience, and persistence, because you are forced to face your doubts, your weaknesses, and your fears directly. And in doing so, you also discover your resilience, your potential, and your ability to rise stronger. And many people run from solitude because it feels uncomfortable. But those who embrace it come to realize that discomfort is simply the process of transformation, the stripping away of what is false, the strengthening of what is real. And as you grow through solitude, you begin to carry yourself differently, no longer shaken by abandonment or silence, no longer needing external validation to feel complete, because you know your foundation is built on something far stronger than approval. It is built on self-knowledge, on clarity of vision, and on inner power. And history shows us that some of the most profound breakthroughs, inventions, and legacies were born in solitude, in the minds and hearts of people who dared to step away from the crowd long enough to cultivate their inner worlds. And that same possibility exists for you, because solitude is not an absence but a presence, the presence of your truest self. And when you embrace it fully, you come out of it with the clarity to see your path, the strength to walk it, and the independence to keep going no matter who stands with you or against you. For growth through solitude is the training ground of greatness, shaping you into someone who can stand firm in the storm and unshaken in the silence. Proving yourself through action is the ultimate answer to doubt, because words, intentions, and promises may inspire temporarily, but it is consistent effort, discipline, and tangible results that speak louder than any explanation you could ever give. And when belief is backed by relentless work, it creates a force that eventually silences criticism, overcomes skepticism, and validates the vision that once existed only in your mind. For action is the bridge between belief and reality, the daily commitment to turn dreams into outcomes. And while others may question your abilities, dismiss your goals, or doubt your potential, they cannot argue with results. They cannot deny what stands in front of them. And that is why action matters more than debate. Because while doubt lives in conversation, belief manifests in persistence. And this persistence is not about a single burst of energy or temporary motivation, but about the relentless dedication to show up again and again, on the days when it is exciting and on the days when it feels heavy, until eventually the accumulation of small, consistent steps becomes undeniable progress. And what makes this process powerful is that result. Do not just silence the voices of others, but also quiet the voice of doubt within yourself. Because as you begin to see the evidence of your own effort, your confidence grows, your faith deepens, and your belief evolves from hope into certainty. And though the road of proving yourself through action is rarely easy, It is precisely the struggle that makes it meaningful, because every obstacle overcome, every setback endured, and every moment of persistence adds weight to your credibility, building not just success but character, for the person who relies solely on talk may convince others for a time, but the one who relies on relentless effort earns respect, influence, and authority that cannot be taken away. And this principle applies in every area of life, whether in pursuing a dream, building a career, developing a skill, or shaping yourself into the person you aspire to be, because nothing replaces action, and the most liberating part of this truth is that you no longer need to defend your vision with arguments, or seek validation from those who cannot see it. You simply keep moving, keep building, keep working until the reality you create stands as evidence too powerful to be ignored, and the silence that follows is not because people suddenly changed their opinions, but because your results left no space for debate. And this is why proving yourself through action is more than a strategy. It is a way of living, a declaration that you will not waste time convincing people with words when you can convince them with what you create, with what you achieve, and with what you become. And once you embrace this mindset, doubt loses its grip, both from outside and inside, because your focus is no longer on being believed, but on becoming undeniable through effort, persistence, and results that no one can overlook.